Hey guys, we're back in the garage today and we have a special video. Today, we are installing this Holley 302-2 oil pan. That's right, it's a specially made oil pan that clears the GM A-bodies. It's extra skinny way up here in the front because it's a cross member that leaves you absolutely no room. Got some modifications to the windage tray to make. I'm going to check the clearances. Stay around to the end and I'm going to show you an important tip, something that you need to make sure is correct. Guys say if you skip this step or you get it wrong, you can destroy your motor. I already destroyed one motor. I am not going to destroy another one. I promise you, I'm not going to destroy a second motor. But we're done gallivanting. We're done with car shows for now. It's time to get to work. It's already September. This thing has got to get back on the road. I can't believe we spent all summer and we didn't get back together. I don't know where you guys have been, but you have not been helping me get this done. So stay tuned. Let's get this on. All right, so we're going to take the windage tray off and we're going to modify it to match that one that is all bent now because I need the extra room for the new pickup for the Holley oil pan. All right, so per the Holley instructions for the oil pan, basically says a full-length windage tray may be used if it is modified to remove the front quarter of the tray and required cut is made to provide clearance for the pickup tube. Well, luckily, I've already got a template. So we've got dimensions here to follow, also about the notch, but I happen to have this one that is from the destroyed LS. And so we can just use it as a template because I took a lot of care in cutting this one. So let's start here. I'll get the Sawzall out. We'll go ahead and give it a trim and then we'll fine tune it with an angle grinder. Not super straight, but I'll clean that up. So I put these on top of each other. Pretty close. I have some trimming to do. I'll hit it with an angle grinder and we'll clean all this up and make it nice and smooth. And we'll have a new windage tray. Now that we have the rough outline cut, I'm going to focus on this this detail. You can see from the center of the hole to the inside here. They want an inch. And you can see what I had. This is the, again, the torn up one over the new ones. I measure from about the center of the hole to the edge. Can't see that because it's blinking because the battery's almost dead, but I got my inch. So I'm probably gonna clean this up with an angle grinder and then we'll test fit it. The other thing to watch out for, and I'll turn it upside down or the same way as the drawing, is in the previous instruction, so it's always good to read these through. We need to make sure that there's room for this, for the oil pickup tube bracket, and it doesn't interfere. And that's this window right here. Sorry, it's in the shadow. And that's this window right here. So we'll test fit everything and we'll make sure that it fits. But first I'm going to clean everything up with an angle grinder. So this is where the windage tray is laying underneath the crank. We cut this out to make clearance for this. So the GMA bodies this pan is really shallow here. And you can see there's a little relief right there for that bottom, these bottom bolts of these rods can clear here. And in fact, if you were to increase the stroke of this motor, you need a different pan, which in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have bought it because it was the same price and it would just give me a little more clearance. But you can actually see on the inside, this is where, if I don't put a gasket in here, this is where that crank bolt, or I'm sorry, this is where that rod bolt hits the inside of the pan. And I clearanced it a little bit on the other motor, but the orientation of the head was slightly different. So it gave me a little bit more room, but you can see it's definitely going to dig in if you let it. But when you put a gasket on here, it increases the thickness and drops this pan down. I'll put that thickness in there. But I'm back to, this is what you're clearancing that out, because there isn't room for that pan to go in and be as shallow as it is here and have that windage tray go all the way to the front of the engine. So we're going to go ahead and test fit it. I've already dropped, this is just sitting on there. And I'm going to test fit the pan. Again, this is no gasket, so this is worst case. I feel like it's got plenty of room. It is not, there's no interference. So I'm even sliding it around a little. Right there is where it's going to live if I just eyeball centering the holes up. So I'm going to pull the plugs out and spin this over, and you'll be able to see this pan come up because of how close everything fits. All right, I got you in here nice and close. Now I'm going to go ahead and spin the motor around. Sorry, it's going to be loud with the clicking, but I'm going to spin the motor around, and you should be able to see that pan pop up. There it goes. Because there's just no clearance. I just spun it back the other way. Again, if I put it back down here. Yeah, everything's tight, just fits. Kudos to Holley because it just fits, but it works. Here it is again. This is where it grabs. It's almost feel like that that relief should be over just a little bit, but I think that's the start of the stroke. Or maybe it could be just a little bit wider while I'm getting an echo tucking in the pan here, but that's where she hits. I had the first time put some black marker in there, and you can see exactly where, but you can see the little notch. Again, I'll put the gasket in after we line up the pickup tube. Put the gasket in, and then we'll make sure that it doesn't hit. All right, while I'm in here and have this apart, I need to get this factory dipstick tube out of here. There are a list of compatible LS3 dipsticks that are compatible with this oil pan system. One is GM part number 126-34547, and the other one is part number 126-25031. So in order for us to use those, this one has to come out, and trust me, the easiest way, you can see I've already crimped it trying to twist it, is to just kind of pop it out from up here. I'm going to be careful not to get anything in the motor because I don't have a clean room, which I wish I did, to keep dust and debris out of this motor. But here we are. This is what we got. This is what we're working with. And, well, without further ado, let's get this dipstick out. Oh! Easy peasy. It's out. Now is the time to do it. All right, we set this up there before. We test fitted it. It is on, smooth. It shouldn't have any issues fitting. Shouldn't be any issues fitting because it came off this. This is the pickup that came with the oil pan, and it's going to mount here on this windage tray bolt, and then here I'm going to pull the O-ring. This is super important. I'm using this O-ring. Keep that in mind. I'll come back to that later. I do not have any clearance issues. I'm going to show you one spot, which is why you put that notch. Remember the notch detail? I'm going to show you one area. Remember the notch detail in that drawing? This is where we notched it. You can see in there. And you can see that that tube just clears all of that. So we did good. It's notched and everything fits. And oh, looks like we could have a little interference there, but actually this pickup tube is not flat. This is where it'll live. So if I push this down to where it's flat on the flange up here, this is where that pickup tube is going to live. So we did good. You can see if I hold this flat where it's going to live, it clears there. It clears back here. And it clears the notch here. Great. All right, next step is to tighten the windage tray, or the oil pan deflector, I think is what they call it in the Holley instructions, to 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to remove this because there's one behind it that's kind of underneath it that you can't get to when this is in place. So we're not going to install this yet. We'll do that in a second. We're going to tighten these to 18 foot-pounds. First, I'm going to tighten them kind of all by hand. I have my torque wrench set to 18 foot-pounds. They do lock. You can feel it as you screw them down. Eighteen. 18. One more check. Let's make sure oil pan still goes on. We didn't miss something. Nope. Everything's good. Nothing hitting. Holes line up. All right. In the beginning of the video, I said that there was an important step. This is it. So you're going to put just a little dab of clean engine oil on this, and you're going to install this O-ring. And the key is, let's put some engine oil on the O-ring. The key is to make sure it doesn't get twisted, it doesn't get pinched, because this is what ensures you have oil pressure. Also, I've heard horror stories that some of the aftermarket seals, these seals, are slightly smaller and they don't make good contact. And you, again, don't have good oil pressure and you could ruin your engine. But it is important that that seal is on there and that seal is not twisted, it's not pinched, there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm preaching, but this could really hurt you in the long run. Also, I'm going to install this pickup tube, and you want to make sure that that seats, I'm going to put a little bit of clean oil in here too, that seats, let me get you in here. In here, I'm gonna smear some fresh oil in there. I want to make sure that seats in here. They give you M6 socket head screws. You do not want to use those screws to draw this in. You want to make sure that this is fully seated before you tighten that down. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to make sure you won't be able to see much from there. Bring you around this side. We're just looking to make sure that this is fully seated. It's snug. I can feel that it's snug. There, I felt it go in. I'm going to put a screw here. Put the bolt here. I felt it go in. I'm going to put a bolt here just so that the weight of the pickup tube doesn't force it back out. It is in there. Now I'm going to put the cap screws. I'm going to install the cap head screws. It comes with 2 of them. If you remember, the stock pickup tube only had 1 bolt in it, in this position right here. And we're going to put 2 in. So again, we're in snug. I'm gonna be careful not to drop this in the motor trying to get to this back one. I'll show you where it's gotta go. It's kind of a bear. It's probably why they don't do it at the factory. But it's gotta go right there without getting dropped to the engine. All right, to make sure that this bolt does not get dropped into the engine when I connect that, I'm gonna take this bolt and I'm going to stick it to the end of this Allen head. So we can't fall in. All right, now that I got a little duct tape holding this on, I'm gonna put this in the hole. Hopefully not drop it in the engine. Get it started. Of course, the duct tape wants to stick to that. All right. Sorry, you can't see. So I got it started. Now a little wiggle, and it's in. Not a big deal if it falls in there. I guess you could always tilt the engine back over and hope that it comes back out. All right, I'm gonna stop hitting the camera. Come on, Tom, hitting the camera. And I'm gonna tighten these up to, I think it's 106 inch-pounds. So probably already too tight. All right, I got my torque wrench set to 106. I don't know if that's clear. 106. So you can go ahead and tighten her down. And this is a clicker type. You should hear it click when we're there. All right, I'm just gonna snug. Can't see, oh, this is not gonna go in there. So we're gonna have to guess on that other one. 106 inch-pounds. That one's there. And this one is physically, impossible to get to with any kind of tool that isn't super long. So I'm gonna do something, guys, close your eyes. I'm gonna do something. I'm not proud of it, but I'm gonna do it. So if you have a strong stomach, keep watching. Feel free to leave in the comments all the reasons why I shouldn't do it this way, but I'm gonna do it this way because otherwise it's just by hand, and which is probably also fine. All right, feels like 106. Ready? Feels like 106. It's gonna live there. Now that that's in, don't forget to come back and tighten this guy up to, what did we say? Hope we said 18 foot-pounds, because that's what it's set to. Yeah, don't forget to tighten this guy up to 18 foot-pounds. We're there. Good. Ta-da! All right, off camera, I already installed the baffle. There's 4 screws or 4 bolts. They do get Loctite, and then they get tightened down to 8 to 10 foot-pounds. I've already done that. Also, the oil passover, there's a seal and 2 bolts. I went ahead and tightened those to 106 inch-pounds with the seal. So that's already been done. I figured you guys didn't need to see it. It's pretty straightforward. But the baffle and the crossover have been installed. Now, I can't fully seal this up yet because it requires RTV in each of these corners. I think you can see that there's this place where there's a gap, RTV in each of these corners. The oil pan can't exceed or protrude past the back of the block. There's really no way to indicate where the back of the block is. So how to do this is you put it on your engine stand, you connect your bell housing, you tighten your bell housing bolts, and then you put your oil pan on. This is all structural. So this oil pan is a structural component of this engine. So that bell housing, or if you have an automatic transmission, the bell housing will center or will align the oil pan to the back of the block, center it or get it flush even with the back of the block. But you can't do it while it's on the stand because, again, if the oil pan protrudes past, it's bad. And also if it's too far forward, it's also bad because there's bolts that go in the back of this and it will want to pull that pan back. Again, this is a structural component. So I'll wait and I'll install that oil pan with the silicone, the RTV in each one of these corners, like I said. I'll install that after I get the engine off the stand and I have it hung and I can get the bell housing on the back. All right, so I got the engine off the stand. I've got the bell housing. I'm going to use the bell housing to ensure that the oil pan, when the oil pan is installed, is not protruding the back of the block. Okay, so I've tightened the bell housing down and I just want to show you two things. The bell housing actually bolts to the oil pan. And you can see here there's no gap, but I do have a couple bolts in it. And I can show you, if we don't line this up now, and you line it up just based on the holes, you could have a gap that big. If you go to tighten up the bell housing, you'll probably bend this here, or break it on either the bell housing or the oil pan. So what you want to do is when you install this oil pan, make sure that that's tight. And we're going to put a bolt in there after we put the RTV in the corners, like I said, so they don't leak. We'll put a bolt in there and make sure that that's true and tight to the bell housing. That'll ensure that we are on the same plane as the back of the block and we don't protrude and we're not short. All right, so I got my Loctite 598 and the instructions say lay a bead on both sides of the block here where I showed you. Here and here. That's one, and then we'll all right, let's see. I preloaded some of the bolts in. Let's see if we can put this up here without making a mess. What we just did. Now it says snug them all up by hand. So once I get them up there, I get a couple to hold it flush here. All right, so the Holley instructions say snug the bolts by hand, starting with the center and working towards the front and the back. Snug here and here. Go to the other side. Snug it by hand. All right, next we're going to tighten from the middle out. These all to 18 foot-pounds. All right, last but not least, the two in the back here get tightened up to 106 inch-pounds. Now we got the oil pan both tight. We just need to tighten these two. These go to 37 foot-pounds. I'm just going to snug these up because I'm not ready to put the bell housing on yet. I still have to put my clutch in and there's some other work to do. All right, guys, the Holley oil pan is installed. We're done. Keep an eye out for my next video where we'll be measuring the runout for the transmission alignment. That's key for the new Tremec 5-speed transmissions. They run a tapered input shaft bearing and they have a really tight tolerance between the back of the crank and the input shaft of the transmission. So keep an eye out for my next video and I'll show you how that's done. We'll go through two methods: the technique that's recommended by Silver Sport Transmissions, and then also the technique that American Powertrain recommends. So if you learned anything, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.